Okay, I've got the transfer case up on the bench here now, and I'm going to try and get this apart today too so I could sandblast both cases at once. We're going to go for the levers first, and you got your grease fitting on this side and your pinch bolt here that holds the shaft in there, and that usually has a safety wire from here and then around the grease fitting and back. But this one, I could see, just goes up and around the lever here. So we're going to cut that out, pull this bolt, pull the grease fitting, knock that pin out, and that'll take the shifters out. And before we start anything, I want to put the transfer case in neutral, because that'll help you get this front cap off a little bit easier. You want to be in neutral to do that. So I already removed the cotter pins from the big nuts there on the front and rear, and we'll pull that pin and we'll go after those, and then we'll pull the pan off and see what it looks like in there. Okay, I've got the nuts off both outputs here, front drive shaft, rear emergency brake drum, and washer stuck in there, and this isn't coming off easily. And instead of heading for the hammer, you know, most guys just want to bang over here and here, and it kind of can mangle those up. This is the type of tool you'd use. This would get bolted there. Your pressure screw would go down through here, pull that right off cleanly, safely, and without distorting anything. So I'm going to get that set up and show you how that works. Okay, I think you can see that okay. We're just going to put a wrench on this, and usually it doesn't take much. Sometimes they can be a bear, but usually it doesn't take too much. I can feel it going already. More than you'd want a hammer on it. It's kind of tight, but that'll walk it right up without damaging anything. Okay. Alright, that washer's jamming me up in there. We'll pull this out and get that washer out of there. Alright. Okay, that was just corroded in there. There it goes. Okay, we got that off safely, and now I'll show you how we go after the seal. Let me get set up for that and be right back with you. Okay, now sometimes that seal can be a bear to get out of there, and you can't just hook a seal remover because it's so deep in there, and sometimes it can be a pain. But a lot of years ago, when Miller was still making some tools that were related to Willys and Jeep stuff, I was able to pick up this particular seal remover. And what that does, that threads right in there. Let me get a wrench on that and get that put in there. Okay, so you're going to screw this right into the seal. You want to get that in there good and tight so it doesn't just rip the lip off the top. Okay, I think that's pretty good. And we're going to oil up the pressure screw. Okay, I think you can see that okay. Okay. Now if we're lucky, that'll pull a seal right out of there. Nope, missed that time. We gotta try and get it down deeper in there. Let's see what that does. We're getting it. It's in there. Nope, I think you can see it all right. Okay. That's how you get that seal out. And there's a paper seal goes in there first. That's critical. You bang that seal on top of it, and as long as you don't have a groove in your yoke there, you'll have a leak-free transfer case. You can see this one's been leaking forever. It's a mess. But that's how you get those seals out. They're kind of tough, but with the right tool, it's not too bad. Okay, there's the rear emergency brake drum off, and you can see that those brake shoes weren't going to do anything. They're so grease soaked. Drum's in tough shape, but we'll put that on the brake lathe, clean it up. I'll just put that to the side now, and we'll pull this off. I think we'll go for the pan next, see what it looks like inside. I'll get this flipped over and that pan off. But first thing we're going to do is put that tool, we're going to thread that into this one, and we're going to get that seal out of there while we can, so we don't have to fight with it later. So we're going to get that set up right now. Okay, let's see if we can get this guy out of here. Looks like it's coming okay. That one's really fighting right till the end. Almost there. There it is. Okay, so our two seals are out. Let me get the paper guy out of there if I can. Okay, there's the paper seal. Goes in back of that one. And now we can take this emergency brake off. We can take the pan off. And I'll get it repositioned on the bench and show you that. Okay, here's the inside of the transfer case. Looks pretty nice. No rust on the gears. Everything going pretty good. And for you guys on your first time maybe rebuilding a transfer case or doing something like that, when you go and order parts, here's your intermediate gear there. And you can get a rebuild kit with a new shaft, bearings, thrust washers, stuff like that. But that's right where your parts guy's going to ask you what size the shaft is in your transfer case. Early MBs and stuff like that had a 3/4 shaft. And then they went to 1 1/8", which this is. And then by the time the CJ5 came around and some of the later vehicles, it was 1 1/4", which was the strongest of all of them. But these are fine. You keep them lubricated in there, and nothing really goes wrong with them. But when you're looking for a small parts kit, you need to know the diameter of that shaft. Just something so you could not drive your parts guy crazy. And we're going to go for this front cap next. We're going to pull out these bolts, springs, and little poppet balls, and we'll get that done, and I'll show you what that looks like as it goes. I got to clean off, there's bolts hiding behind here and here. I got to clean all that off, and I'll be right back with you. Okay, right behind this guy here, you're going to have a spring and a little ball that goes in the detent of this rod here. Keeps you in gear. Sometimes the spring will pop out. This one's not, but there's going to be a spring in there. And we'll go after that spring. Okay, there's the spring. There's going to be a ball in there. We'll get that out with a magnet. Let's see what this one does. Okay, not a lot of pressure on those springs. There goes that spring. Oh, and the ball fell out of that side. Okay, so don't lose those pieces. Let's stick a magnet in there and get that ball out, but don't lose those pieces. Okay, now when you're pulling this, we got our bolts out. When you're going to pull this off, you need everything in neutral. Otherwise, there's an interlock in there. I'll show you that when I get it out. But you need this in neutral for everything to slide out. So, I'm going to pull that off and show you what I'm talking about. Okay, I'm pulling the front cap off here, but there was a lot of debris on these shift levers here, so they weren't going through the seals right behind here. Not a big deal now. We just kind of scrape that stuff off and jam them through there. But when you're putting your when you're putting your new seals in and you're putting that front cap on, you don't want to tear them up. So you want these super smooth and polished. Okay, so I think, well, I can't do it holding the camera, but this is just going to slide off here, and I'll show you that interlock in a minute. But let me get that off, and I'll be right back with you. Okay, we're going to go in here between the two shifters with a magnet. I think you can see that. We're going to pull out that interlock there. Okay. Okay, that little pin sits in here between the two. Okay, and that, you can't see that hanging there. Okay, this pin will ride in these little detents. Okay, so you could only have you can only get into 4 low when you're in 4-wheel drive, basically. If you take this pin out, you can shift any way you like. So you can have, basically you could be in low range 2-wheel drive. And there'll be a bunch of guys tell you that you can't run 2-wheel drive in low range, but I do it on all my transfer cases because there's just certain times that I'm using a vehicle that I want the 2-wheel drive in a low range. But to get that, you take this pin out, and that allows each one of these to move independently, and you don't have to be in 4-wheel drive to get low range. So just remove that little guy from between there, and you've got 2-wheel drive low range. Some guys like it, some guys don't. I've been running them like that for years and years without any trouble, and I do like to be able to shift that way. But that's the key to it right there. So when that's out, you can shift any way you like. And here's the bolt that puts this front cap on. They go through here and here, and you can see the oil on them. They go right into the case. So when you put these back, there's just a little star washer on these original. When you put these back, clean them real good, squeaky clean, and get some thread sealant on there, and it's going to prevent just a disaster of a transfer case with grease and oil and grit everywhere if you seal all the bolts that go into the case. So just a little something. We'll pull this apart. That's your little shifter, you know, that puts you in and out of front axle, in and out right there, and we'll pull that apart. And we got to get these seals out here and here, and we're on our way. I'm going to work on the rest of the case first before I do this little piece, and show you how the rest of this comes apart. Okay, we're going to pull this whole emergency brake apart. Get your bolts here and here. On a lot of earlier vehicles, there was a piece of safety wire running through those. The bolts were drilled, and it was a piece of safety wire. It's been like that on every two-way I've taken apart, but this being a 3A, I guess they stopped doing it with the safety wire. So 4 bolts, and that drum's going to pull off. We'll just put that to the side, then we'll get inside and pull the gears out. Alright, we should be able to pull this right off. Now the bolts are loose. Okay. Gasket's in place, but you can see quite a bit of leaking in there. We'll just put that off to the side. Okay, we got one more bolt here. We'll pull this off, and I'll show you how all the shims and everything go in there, and how you tension your bearings and stuff. So let me get that one out, and I'll be right back with you. Okay, here's another instance where that bolt has just been oozing lubricant for a long time. You know, they go right into the case right there, so you've got to put some sealant on those to stop the leaks. Okay, we're going to pull this off, and what we're going to find is your speedo. That's where your speedo cable hooks up. There's your gear. That's what drives your gear. So that's the drive gear, that's the driven gear. I want to keep those together. And here are your shims. There's one there. There's one there. And I'll show you when we're on a reassembly how we shim that bearing. This is the bearing you're shimming here. That controls the end play here and here. You're supposed to have about 6 thousandths. That's a little heavy, but we'll see what those bearings look like. So we'll put this off to the side. Okay, we're going to go after this bolt. We're going to knock out the shaft and see how everything looks inside there. Okay, we're going to go for this shaft. We're going to knock that out the back. We got it on the run now. Let me make sure you can see that okay. I know it's getting away from me. Can't pull it out yet. Let's knock it right out of there. There it goes. Not in too bad a shape. And now we can lift our gear out. little slippery. Okay, got our front and rear thrust washer. They're a little chewed up. Not bad, but we'll be replacing those. And when you have this size shaft, you get these guys are in a cage. You don't have individual needle bearings, so they're easy to put in and out. Okay, so I'm real happy with that gear. That's in perfect shape. We'll go after this guy next. Okay, we just tapped out the cup there. This bearing we freed up enough to get at. There's a snap ring right in there. So we're going to go after that snap ring. Allow us to pull the whole thing out. So I'm going to go after that snap ring now, and we'll keep everything in order, and then we'll inspect the bearings, and we'll see what everything looks like. Okay, we have an empty case, except for this fork here, and usually there's no reason to pull that out unless something's broken. So we'll leave that in there. And here's our little gear train here. Bearings, I think we're going to change them out. I don't like the way the cups look. So we're going to change the bearings out, but the gears are wonderful. And I'll pull this apart and show you what that looks like. Okay, I pulled the shift fork out and the shift dog here. And we're going to go for that bearing in there because we may want to change that. I'm going to look at it. There's a snap ring in there. And a little groove up here where you could just start underneath it with a screwdriver and walk it out of there. So we're going to pull that snap ring and push the whole assembly through the inside here. And then we'll inspect that bearing. Okay, everything's out of that rear, the front cap I mean. I've got the shaft, the shifter, snap ring and bearing out. The bearing's a little messed up. And pop the seals out. It's a nice thick original seal. The ones you get today aren't anything like that. Real high quality seal there, but they were in tough shape. And I'll just get a bar under them like this and pop them right out. They can sometimes really be stuck in there. But now it's time to clean everything up. The case, I've got to kind of get all that junk off there with a scraper. Transmission case, transfer case, and all these parts here. And then we'll head out back. We'll start sandblasting. So that's what the teardown looks like on a T90 and a Model 18 transfer case. So next time you see it, everything will be clean, and we'll start the reassembly. We'll order some parts and get some new stuff in here, some new bearings, and I'll show you how to make all the adjustments on the transmission and transfer case. So that's coming next, and feel free to subscribe or comment or let me know if there's anything you'd like to see, and we'll just keep going along with this 3A restoration. Okay, catch you next time.